and obviously canvassing is your big one, even though that's not necessarily under your roof anymore. But I think you
Mhm.
mentioned to me you guys what you're projecting you'll do about 5 million from canvassing in 25.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
our very conservative projection is a minimum of 4,
Yeah.
and then all the way up to potentially 6 or 7.
Okay. And you said you've got the two teams, one in each market, the canvassing team
Mhm.
there. How do you for people, and let's kind of soup to nuts. Let's cover
Mhm.
everything. How do you decide where the team is knocking on any individual day?
Yep. So we always want to be planning about 90 days ahead of time for
Okay.
territory. You never
Yep.
want to get caught with your pants down, and you've got guys who are ready to go knock doors, and you don't have an area for them to knock in
Right.
with permits.
Right.
So we always want to be that far ahead. Um, so I'm starting with one, hey, where can we get permits?
Right.
Um, every state's a little bit different. For us, the vast majority of areas we have to have permits for. Some of
Right.
them are very, very easy to get, and some of them you need to like give them your kidney.
Mhm.
So you have to really kind of plan accordingly for that.
Yeah.
So now let's say, okay, you've got your areas, you're scheduling ahead of time, you have your permits. Then we're looking at what type of areas you're going into and the time of day.
Hmm.
So if I'm earlier in the day, I want to go towards more affluent, larger homes
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's more likely, obviously, to have older people who are our target market. We're
Right.
looking at people ages about 40 to 65, and they're more likely to either work from home, be retired, or just not be working full time. So you're more likely to just get more contacts and talk to more decision makers during that time of day. And then
Right.
if I'm going towards a little bit more towards the lower middle income, more 9 to 5, I'm not going to those areas until much, much later in the day.
Yeah. So how long will a canvassing team, what's their typical day like? Like what time? They start at this time
Uh,
and they're done. Because if you run those later evenings,
yeah,
they're starting
yeah,
later.
yep. From Monday through Friday, they are 11 to 7:30.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then I think you even broke it down when we talked earlier, like you kind of look at 250 to 550. Is that typical that's that group of people that is home during the day, right? And anything below home values of 250 is typically in the evening, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Very good. And then how do you know like what neighborhoods, like how do you decide, okay, these 7 blocks, these 20, how do you break it up?
Yeah, so a lot of it when like if you just zoom out on your city on Google Maps, you can actually tell pretty easily where the
Yeah.
affluent neighborhoods are and
Uh,
what looks more inner city, right? If I'm
right.
looking at a map and I see grids, I know like you've got houses smashed together as closely as possible. That's
Yeah.
an area that's going to be a little bit lower income versus you have like large windy roads or very clearly like set aside developments.
Right.
Those are
Right.
absolutely going to be more affluent areas 100% of
Right.
the time.
Right. And then the canvassers, there you guys use some kind of a software, so they know what
Mhm.
homes they're knocking on. Kind of explain how they know. How do you upload that information into it? How does that all work?
Yep. So we use Sales Rabbit,
Yeah.
and we can map their territory, literally just like draw it and then assign it to them.
Okay.
And then so when they pull up, hey, my areas for the day, like boop, it pops right up.
Yeah. Yeah. And how often will you knock a designated territory? Because you don't want to overdo it, right? And then irritate the
Hmm.
whole neighborhood, right? So
Yeah,
what's your
absolutely.
typical? Hmm.
So in a given day, a canvasser is going to have 2 laps of about 40 or 50 doors. And
Okay.
then after we talk to somebody, we're not going to go back for 90 to 120 days.
Okay. All right. That's a good nugget because again, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
quick way to make people mad is if you show up every. In fact, it's funny you said you did work with AT&T. I've had AT&T's been at my door about every other day. I feel like for the last because we've got the new fiber or whatever, and I'm like, buddy, okay, I appreciate what you're doing, but
Yeah,
you can overdo it. The bottom line, you can overdo
100%.
it.
And yeah, a lot of companies and organizations really don't get that. A lot of the more old school, traditional, just like nose to the grindstone and like just turnover like you wouldn't believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they can absolutely overdo it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what information do the canvassers have? Because you don't want to give them too much, right? But you want
Yeah,
to give
they
them a
have
little bit.
almost nothing.
Yeah, right. But they know if it's a
They
previous customer, right?
Yep. So we save a few things
Yeah.
because our canvassers will mark if this is a renter. Obviously, if it's an existing customer, that's already pre-uploaded from our IT team. Also, if a door is a do not knock for a variety
Mhm.
of reasons, we keep
Right.
all those things up.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's kind of dig into the process. So you've given them what they're, I guess they come in the shop every morning or
Mhm.
so, and they get.
Um, I think now they meet twice a week.
Okay. All right. So they
But they
start
do
the.
have to come to the shop to get the trucks and then head out. But they've got a
Right.
formal meeting that's about an hour, about twice a week.
Okay. All right. And so from that, they know where they're going. They
Hmm.
know their scripting, which I'm going to hold on to that for people coming to Expo soon. Hopefully,
Fair enough.
Austin will be digging more into this for us. But so from that point, their goal is to what? They want to set an appointment for a salesperson.
Yep. So their primary objective is I just want to get an inspection.
Right.
Like I don't want to prejudge the home. I don't want to prejudge the roof, deciding the windows. Just talk to a homeowner, get an inspection, go from there. But then
Right.
absolutely, if they find that there's need, the goal is to flip that to the sales team for an appointment.
Right. Right. And then the inspection. What all will they inspect? Maybe let's talk about that.
Yep. So there's going to be a 21-point roof inspection where they're looking at everything, obviously from the soffits, the drip edge, the gutters, the downspouts, all of the flashing, the shingle quality, the ventilation, all of that.
Yeah, and they're capturing video,
Pictures.
still
Yep.
imagery, pictures. Okay.
Yeah. Video if relevant, but I think they do like 99% photos.
Okay. And then how long is typically an interaction? Let me say you come knocking on my house. How long should I, expect you to be here?
At the very longest, I think about 45 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Which would be obviously if we're knocking on the door, having say a 5 to 10 minute conversation initially with the
Yeah.
customer, which would be long, but maximum. And then you go do that inspection. That inspection could take 25 minutes. And then you're going down and explaining with the photos and talking with the homeowner.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, I do want to talk about you changed the process, I guess, about 6 months ago from when we first spoke. Because before it was like a three-prong process. You had canvassers that set kind
Hmm.
of a lead for an inspector, and then an inspector
Hmm.
would flip that to a salesperson. Now you've kind of cut it
Hmm.
down to two.
Hmm.
Maybe explain why you decided to do that for people that again want to do this on their own and go, well, maybe I'll try in this other model. You've tried it, so
Yep.
kind of what were the bumps in the road with that?
Yeah. We made all the mistakes so that no one else has to.
Yeah.
So the reason that we originally switched from setting even estimates to inspections
Hmm.
was the reasoning that it's a lot easier to get a homeowner to just agree to an inspection rather than an
Right.
estimate right off the rip, right? Like, hey, you just talked to me 5 minutes ago, man. I'm not giving you 30 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so setting an inspection first and foremost. And then we just found way too much fall off between the canvasser to the inspector than to the
Yeah.
sales team again. It
Yeah.
just gave people way too many opportunities to get out of the funnel.
Yep. Yep. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. And what kind of KPIs do you have for the canvasser slash inspector? How many,
Hmm.
they're knocking X amount of doors. We expect X amount of appointments set for your salespeople.
Yep. So their standards are knocking, I believe it's 60 doors a day,
Hmm.
and they want to get 8 um, appointments flipped to the sales team per week.
Okay.
And out of that will come probably 4 actual demos, 4 or 5
Okay.
demos.
Okay. And then, traditionally, I think you're closing what, like 50, I think you were at like 50% on those, right?
Yeah, our net close rate is probably about 40%
Yeah,
true on
it's pretty
those.
just
But yeah.
standard. Yeah. Okay. Very good. And then how are I mean, what are you calling them exactly now? Inspectors or canvassers or what's the job title officially?
Yeah, inspectors. Yeah.
Inspectors. How are they compensated? Is it just all based on production or do they get some kind of an hourly rate?
Yep. So they've got a high base hourly rate, and then they get paid. It's like 45 or $50 per flipped inspection to the sales team, and then a 1% override of net revenue for
Okay.
what they sell because we want them
Okay.
incentivized towards those big tickets.
Yeah. Um, People that would look to add these types of individuals, what kind of backgrounds are we talking about for these inspectors?
Yeah, I would highly recommend getting with a company like Culture Index for personality assessments.
Yeah,
It's been absolutely essential for us on the canvassing side.
yeah,
As far as backgrounds, like it is really diverse. But if you think about the exact same as anyone would recommend for finding a sales team, it's very
yeah,
similar.
yeah,
Because we hire salespeople with no experience. So you're looking for people in the restaurant industry. You're looking for people that have been customer focused, um,
yeah,
not retail. Those people traditionally don't have the type of grit necessary for the position.
yeah,
But you're looking for things where people just like frankly like they have to work hard, and they were
yeah.
probably hired into their current position without any experience.
Right.
So they know what it's like to really kind of learn and grow and grind.
Yeah.
And those people traditionally do quite well.
Yeah. You mentioned Culture Index, which I don't know anyone that hasn't had a great experience with them and using it in multiple ways throughout their business. But are there
Mhm.
certain profiles that tend to do well from Culture Index for this position in particular?
Yep. Rainmaker, Persuader, Architect, Trailblazer. Those are
Yeah.
four off the top of my head that all do well.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so very good. So that's their background, and then what's the training process for these individuals? So you like, okay, we think you got a quality person.
Hmm.
What's the next step?
Yep. So they're going when they come in, and we just did an onboarding class of 10 people. They have an onboarding of 2 weeks with Trevor, as well as their managers, but mainly Trevor, where he's taking them, like you said, soup to nuts through everything. We're
Yeah,
teaching the product knowledge. They're doing shadowing. We're going through the scripting word for word.
right.
And then at the end of those 2 weeks, then they have a final test. Part of it is written on obviously the knowledge that they learned, and then they
Yeah.
also they um, go A to Z through a presentation with the manager, from knocking
Okay.
on the door all the way to flipping the appointment. And if
Wow,
they
that's
don't
great.
pass both of those things with flying colors, they're not getting out in the field.
Wow. How many, so like of the 10 that you just went through this process, how long how many of the 10 will make it? How long will they average, the average person stay with you?
Yeah. So in this new model, I don't know the answer to that yet.
Right, right, right.
Um, I would say 6 to 7 will last, and out of those, let's say seven, 1 to 2 of them will be here probably 2 months, and then hopefully half of them will be here 6 months to a year.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good. And then, I mean, I guess you don't really know how many will potentially become a future salesperson for you, right? I mean, have you have any kind of
Yeah,
track record with that?
yeah, we've promoted 3 or 4 people from canvassing into sales.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So that's again the position to be knocking on doors. I've got a buddy who's a local, or well, he's a Missouri state politician, and that guy, the stuff he tells me, door knocking, you got to have some grit, basically.
Oh yeah.
You got
Hmm.
to. So if you can do that, sitting down with someone and selling them a roof, it doesn't look so intimidating, I guess.
Oh no, no. When you do knocking doors for a living, especially heavy on commission, it creates a level of self-belief. When you can
Right.
learn to do that from no experience, or like it's really unmatched.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any other little nuggets we should know about canvassing before we kind of pivot to some other marketing stuff?
I would say the biggest thing, we talked about this a little bit the last time,
Yeah.
is that a lot of companies want to go half in to
Yeah.
canvassing, which I get. Like it's a big thing, undertaking to take on,
Right.
but like there has to be a dedicated manager.
Yeah.
What a lot of people think is like, okay, I'll just go hire some kids, teach them a script, and then it'll go well. And it won't. It's going to go terrible.
Right.
So you have to have a dedicated manager and someone who is good at persuading, leading from the front, and that in-house manager has to be
Yeah.
go willing to get out into the dirt themselves and go knock
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah.
Because you can't,
Yeah.
you're not going to have a team of people who believe in the process if the manager's hanging out in the office all day. That's not going to
Right.
happen.
Right. If you were to implement this from scratch again, what are some, other than having someone to manage the process, the whole time,
Hmm.
what are maybe two or three things you would go, we have to have this right for this to launch well?
Yep. So outside of having that proper person and having, say, a culture index to know that I'm hiring the right kind of people,
Yeah.
then you're looking at the scripting and kind of the basic materials. So we have the scripting word for word for them to learn,
Yeah.
because we have to hold tight to a system. Like it's just like
Right.
McDonald's or Chipotle delivering a consistent product.
Yep.
Um, a lot of, I would say, especially for roofing, business owners that are that more natural salesman type, like they don't have a script written down to save their life, right? Like they
Right.
just
Right.
go in there in the home and they wing it and they sell because they're just them.
Them.
Well,
Yeah.
bad news, not everyone's you. Most everyone isn't. So you have
Right.
to have that scripted system really written out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then just the proper, just like company materials, like, hey, do they have a polo? Do they look professional? Do they feel good? Do they have an iPad? A lot of
Right.
those just like
Right.
little basic details that can allow that person who has never knocked doors before to really feel confident, at least as much as they can
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah. It's important. I mean, we talk all the time. Hey, are your people in? Do they look nice? You got to make sure
Mhm.
your canvassers look nice too. You don't want some ragamuffin knocking on your door and like, I don't want anything to do with that guy if that's what he represents, right? It's those little things.
Oh, absolutely. I had a few months ago, just like you with AT&T, somebody, a competitor, knocking on my door as an internet company, and they looked like a borderline homeless person. And I was like,
Right.
no, I'm not answering that door.